The Consulship of Tullius and Antonius Hybrida. Cicero and Antonius were elected for the consulship in 63 BCE. Their rival Catiline ran for the consulship of 63 with financial support from Licinius Crassus, but senatorial leaders rallied behind Cicero, and Catiline lost. He campaigned again in 63, making a broad appeal on a platform of cancellation of debts. Again he failed because of the opposition of Cicero and heavy bribery by his senatorial competitors. Disappointed and disgruntled, Catiline turned to revolution. With a small group of senatorial backbenchers and equestrians, he made plans to recruit an army in Etruria, march on Rome, and take control of the state after murdering Cicero and other leading senators. Cicero learned of the plot from one of the conspirators and obtained concrete evidence of it from Crassus. On October 21, 63 BCE, Cicero exposed Catiline's plans in the Senate, which declared a state of emergency and voted Cicero full power to deal with conspiracy. His defensive measures in Rome and elsewhere in Italy foiled Catiline's plans on October 27. On November 7, Cicero denounced Catiline in the Senate in the first of his 4 Catilinarian orations. Catiline promptly left Rome to join his troops in Etruria. Early in December, Cicero arrested 4 of the conspirators left in Rome, and they were put to death on his orders. This action broke the back of the conspiracy. In January 62 BCE, 2 senatorial armies trapped Catiline at Pistoria in northern Etruria as he tried to flee to Gaul, and he died fighting at the head of his troops. The First Triumvirate, Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar. On the political front at Rome, no sooner had Catiline been dispatched than another scandal was broke. Claudius Pulcher, in love with Julius Caesar's wife Pompeia, when the winter ceremony of the Bona Dea, from which men were excluded, was celebrated in the house of Julius Caesar, a man believed to be Claudius was discovered disguised as a female harpist among the participants. Charged with incest, he was tried before the Senate. Caesar divorced his wife in suspicion that she had admitted Claudius to the ceremony. Pompey now arrived back from the east. To considerable relief, he disbanded his army before celebrating a magnificent triumph. But then he ran into a brick wall. He had 2 needs and 1 want: land for his veteran soldiers as their pension on demobilization, ratification of his eastern settlement, and marriage into the family of the Optimate Porcius Cato. However, the Optimate's clause rang against him and prevented him achieving any of these, and he wasn't the only man to be frustrated. Licinius Crassus had been Rome's richest individual, gaining the nickname the richest. His dealings had made him the spokesman for a syndicate of equestrian tax farmers. Another ability of Licinius Crassus was a military command. In 73 BCE, a Thracian named Spartacus led a revolt at a gladiator school at Capua, a city south of Rome. He and his followers went on a rampage throughout Italy. The revolt continued for almost 2 years, defying the Roman forces sent against them, so that in 71 BCE, Crassus was sent by the Roman Senate to finally suppress the uprising. Eventually, Spartacus was killed and 6,000 of his followers were crucified along the Appian Way, the road between Rome and Capua, to serve as a warning to others. Although most of the praise should have gone to the military leadership of Crassus, The third member of the gang, Julius Caesar, a military hero in his own right, returned from Spain in triumph, something that he hoped would help bring him additional fame and wealth. While he was not as prosperous as the others, he was actually deeply in debt. He too had a goal to be named consul and afterwards gain a proconsulship, military command in Gaul. Pompey, Crassus, Caesar were by no means good friends, but they knew that their combined political leverage could secure their individual short-term ambitions. So they formed an informal political deal which later became known as the First Triumvirate. They could now dominate Roman politics. The first order of business, Caesar was able to reconcile the differences between Pompey and Crassus. Next, he married his daughter Julia to Pompey to seal the alliance. Together, the gang overcame their first obstacle when Caesar was named co-consul for the year 59 BCE with Marcus Calpurnius Bibulus. Unfortunately, a good friend of Cato, despite his best efforts, Caesar was unable to push Pompey's agenda or any of his other reforms through the Senate. By law, a consul had the right to veto a proposal made by his fellow consul, and that was exactly what Bibulus did. So instead of fighting with the Senate, Caesar took his idea to the popular assembly. As Caesar stood in the forum and presented his proposal to the assembly, Bibulus attempted to interfere but instead was thrown down the steps of the temple of Castor, where he was showered with garbage. He returned to his home where he remained out of public life. Caesar would rule as consul alone. Cato finally admitted defeat and accepted the bill. The veterans got their land. The triumvirate was apparently working. Caesar's first invasion of Britain. Things were looking good for the triumvirate, and Caesar now took opportunity to invade Britain. Julius Caesar invaded Britain twice, in 55 and 54 BCE. Julius Caesar's first invasion took place in 55 BCE. The reasons for this attack that, firstly and importantly, in the eyes of the average Roman, Caesar claimed it was self-defense. He invaded Britain to protect Rome. As he said in his Gallic Wars, he made this decision because he found that the British had been aiding the enemy in almost all our wars with the Gauls. Caesar landed on the coast of Kent in 55 BCE with 2 legions with 80 transports and also a number of warships, which were assigned to the generals and officers of the auxiliary troops. Lastly, 18 transports were allotted to the cavalry. Caesar set sail at midnight with favorable weather. He reached Britain with the first few ships at 9 o'clock in the morning and saw the enemy army posted on all of the hills. Caesar thought that this place was too unsuitable for landing and rode until 3 o'clock, finding a suitable place for landing. When Caesar found a good place for landing, he gave the signal for weighing anchor and ran his ships aground on an evenly sloping beach with no obstacles. But the Britons followed them mile for mile, so by the time the Romans arrived off the beaches, the natives are ready for them again. The Romans now have to perform the most difficult of military operations, a contested amphibious assault. If this took place, then it worked, because the legions ultimately learned, fight the Britons and make their way to shore. The Britons flee, but Caesar has no cavalry, so he can't pursue them. He builds a marching camp and stays close to it for the rest of the 55 BC invasion, mainly because without cavalry he can't reconnoiter the way forward. So he returns after some bad weather damages his ships. Reasons for the first Unsuccess invasion. In his 55 BCE invasion of Britain, Caesar seems to have been pretty unprepared. He didn't do a very good reconnaissance. So for example, Caesar was advised to find a landing place on the beaches beneath the white cliffs of Dor, which is not a good place to land. All your opponents can be standing on top of the cliffs, throwing rocks, throwing javelins, throwing spears, firing slingshots, shooting arrows down at you. It's a very poor place to mount an amphibious landing. Secondly, Caesar's force proved to be too small, and crucially his cavalry didn't arrive. Next, the Britons have been alerted by their Gallic friends that the Romans are coming. The second misfortune was this: his 55 BCE invasion failed due to bad weather and sea conditions. The bad weather and rough sea didn't just affect the cavalry transports, water filled the infantry transport and warships, and the sea sent them crashing together, wrecking many. Those that did survive were not fit for sailing. The second invasion of Caesar, at the outset of 54 BCE, two things certainly troubled Caesar. Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, a definite political opponent in the camp of the Optimates, had been elected consul, and trouble was brewing in his province of Illyricum. The Pyrrhus tribe near modern Albania was causing trouble, forcing Caesar to focus some attention on his neglected province. With the presence of the now inspiring Caesar, the situation was handled quickly by raising an adequate force. The Pyrrhus provided hostages and settled into peaceful affairs, allowing Caesar to return to Gaul. While away, he ordered a massive fleet to be built for a larger second crossing to Britain. This time, though, Caesar made modifications to the ships, having them built without the deep keels of standard Roman galleys. This would allow a more effective landing for his legions and cavalry. By July of 54 BCE, after a short delay caused by the Treviri tribe, Caesar was finally ready to go. With 800 ships, 5 legions and 2,000 cavalry, leaving 3 legions and 2,000 cavalry in Gaul under Labienus. The Roman fleet was the largest naval landing operation in the history of the world. Landing the following morning, the sheer size of the Roman force surely intimidated the Britons. The Romans were allowed to land and make camp freely without opposition, subduing several local tribes in the process. The main British forces retreated inland to avoid Caesar, but he definitely pursued. 1 legion and 300 cavalry were left at the beach camp, while the bulk of the force marched towards the Britons. Small-scale fighting couldn't stop the Roman advance, and Caesar captured one hold out near modern Canterbury on the Stour River. Just as Caesar was about to press the issue, however, news arrived of another coastal storm that wrecked the bulk of his anchored fleet. Hurrying back to the camp, he ordered Labienus to build as many ships as he could in Gaul and ordered his own men to repair the damage. Successfully salvaging his fleet, Caesar returned to the Stour to find that the Britons had begun to unite under Cassivellaunus. While marching, the Romans were ambushed but repelled the attack after some serious casualties and a hard fight. Next, the Romans moved to the Thames and were engaged in the largest battle of this expedition, winning a decisive victory. The resistance of the local tribes in any significant numbers came to an abrupt end. Caesar invested the fortified holdout of Cassivellaunus, while his single legion back at the beach camp fended off a joint attack of various tribes. Winning both engagements, the opposition of the local tribes came to an end, and Caesar was able to claim victory. By September, arrangements for peaceful relations had been made, and the Romans returned to Gaul. Though this second invasion of Britain did little more than secure some hostages, tribute and Roman awareness on Britain, it had the significance of being a dignity-saving campaign for Caesar. After virtually retreating for the first expedition a year earlier, This time he left only after securing his dominance. Though that dominance wouldn't last without Roman presence. Caesar was able to claim victory in a land that some back home probably didn't even think existed.